Hey guys. Well, if you're in manufacturing, you're probably being tasked to cut costs. We're in a tight cost environment, and it's nothing new for you, but maybe, because you've been at it for a long time, it's kind of another hurdle for you. Um, Here's the deal. There are good ways and bad ways to go about cost cutting. I've got Chuck Deise. He is with a company called EFESO, a consultancy that focuses just on that. And he's here to line out, hey, here are some right ways to go about getting some substantial cost benefits as you move forward. So Chuck is here. He's going to share all that with us in just a minute. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
Hey, Chuck, welcome to Manufacturing Talks. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jim. Good to be here.
Glad to have you and looking forward to the discussion. I think we're going to dive into some topics my audience is really going to be interested in. But before we do that, why don't you just spend a minute or two telling everyone about your background, how you got doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, so a little bit about me. Let's see. So I've been in the industry for over 40 years. Started out years ago. My journey in college, a bachelor's in engineering and a master's in an MBA in operations management. Interesting. While I was in college, I was part of a engineering internship program at a large integrated steel company, and boy, that was a great opportunity. I really got to learn about manufacturing, heavily regulated, asset-intensive industries, right? And I knew at that point I just liked being around manufacturing. It's an interesting time in industry around transformation. Really, this cost out theme we're going to talk about.
Yep.
But I've been blessed to be able to work with a number of executives to help improve financial performance. A little bit about EFESO. So we're a global operations strategy and performance improvement company. We're a pure play. We're really focused on operations and supply chain, and that's how we differentiate ourselves. That's our focus. We bring strong industry experience in that space, and really differentiate ourselves to clients, right? So a lot of folks work for us, consultants that used to work in industry, so we can hit the ground running and drive accelerated results. We're headquartered in Paris, but we do a lot of business globally, and EFESO is a great place to work. So I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited to talk to you about the survey we did with Industry Week.
Yeah, and so I mean that's the next topic. You guys did this survey that I think had some interesting findings. Why don't we talk about some of those now?
Yeah, so we launched the survey with Industry Week, and we've done surveys in the past with other major journals, right? And it was the theme was around the impact of tariffs, kind of the economic and some of the geopolitical issues, right? How are companies responding, right? And we had a sense of that, right? But we wanted to kind of get a broader perspective, and we interviewed, I think, over 400 executives to get good feedback, and the survey's been published. But I think the big takeaways were it's really around, in this challenging economy, it's what are they doing, right? And I'd say that the survey found that 85% of companies are under severe cost pressure. So we're not in growth mode. We're in how do we manage our business lean and mean, do more with less, right? So of those companies, 91% of the companies said, their cost takeout targets are more aggressive this year than they were last year, and they expect the same in 26, right? So 84% said manufacturing processes are a big opportunity for ops improvement and cost takeout, right? So a lot of the work we're doing in industry right now is around cost takeout. That's been the theme of the survey. But what I found interesting was that when we asked the question, how confident were you that your company will hit the cost takeout targets for 25? Less than half said they were confident, right? So that was interesting. And then the other question I thought was very interesting was 25% said they lacked the capability to drive cost out. Now, when we talk about cost out, we're talking about companies that have committed significant cost takeout targets to the street, right? We're talking 100 million, 200 million, upwards to 800 million, right? So these companies in this economy, these are large companies in this economy
Mhm.
that, they realize that they got to take cost out to be much more aggressive, right? So, uh, and that was the theme of the article. And I'll talk a little bit about the findings. I think that the interesting point is that as we did the survey and as we work with companies in these industries, I would say the approach has been pretty much superficial. And what I mean by that is, it's the traditional, all right, we're in a tough economy. We have to cut back on our business, and a lot of that means headcount reduction, right?
Mhm.
How do I reduce heads, right? So there's tops-down targets that kind of roll through the organization and they reduce heads. I think the point is that those that approach, in my experience working with executives, is very superficial, right? And it's very short-term focused.
Right.
Just to sort of give you an example, and I think that's why they need a better way. And I'll kind of talk about some of the views and thoughts about how to approach this differently to drive a more sustainable cost out approach, right? And that I think that's what companies are looking for. But I think that the feedback from executives that I talk to is, hey Chuck, we've had these cost takeout targets. They've helped us in the short term take significant cost out, but in 6 months we're adding that cost back, right? So it's not
Mhm.
sustainable. We're not changing the way work is done, right? And that's how you drive sustainability. We're just reducing heads, right? And then another executive from a large chemical company said, "Hey Chuck, it's interesting. When we take cost out, we're actually reducing headcount, but it's a lot of our tenured employees. It's the people that have the intellectual knowledge, the IP, that understand our standard operating procedures. Now, these are the older folks, right, that have been
Right.
around, but they're taking packages and leaving these companies. And what these companies end up with is really younger talent that they have to train, right? And it takes them a while to kind of rebuild. So um, I think the focus is, okay, what do you do? What do you really do to drive sustainable improvement in terms of cost out? And I think as we work with companies, EFESO has a large focus right now with a number of companies, really around global cost takeout programs. There's a better way, right? And it evolves really around five things. And I'd say that, what we find out there is processes are complex in manufacturing, meaning,
Mhm.
we've done it this way for years. We may have done some improvement, but there's a lot of complexity. So, the first focus becomes, how do I simplify? How do I standardize? And how do I digitize my manufacturing processes, quite frankly, across the globe, right? So, just quick story there. So one company we're working with, they have 100 sites, and each site operates their plant differently, improves their plant differently, drives their maintenance excellence strategies differently, reliability different, and quality. So imagine multiple sites that have their own. There's some basis, but I would say in general they have their own sort of processes for the way they run these operations. And organizationally, the organizations have been built up over the years. So they hired who they needed to hire, and with really no standardization across the industry, right? So across these sites, I meant to say. So
Mhm.
so so the a big focus we're working with companies today is really laying down standard work. It's one way, quite frankly, of operating a plant, improving, how do I operate plant, improve plant, maintain plant, improve reliability, and improve quality, right? So as these companies are implementing standard work, they're also looking at what's the best practice. It's more efficient, right? It's a more agile practice. So as they're implementing these new processes in the area I talked about, we also lay down an organizational model, right? So that organizational model says, with this new best practice, This is the organization. These are the roles and responsibilities you need to run. So part of that exercise becomes, quite frankly, delayering and building a new organization that has an optimized headcount for each of those work processes, right? So and then imagine that these companies are implementing that in multiple sites, right? So therein lies the opportunity for the change the way work is done, change the organizational model, and really have one way of running your operation across all your sites, right? Now, and I'd say that this focus has driven significant 10 to 15% cost out of their operations, which is pretty significant for these companies by really standardizing, right? And so what we do there is we have standard process maps, work instructions, role descriptions, so we can walk into a company and say, this is what good looks like. Here's how you ought to run. Here's the best practices, right? And then work with these companies to lay down these best practices, the new organizational model, the roles and responsibilities. And within 6 to 8 months, they're running a more optimized operation in these areas, right? And it's a reduced cost. And the beauty of that, it is sustainable because we've changed the way work is done, right? So that's where we see good. I would say the more mature, the better companies going in terms of operations improvement. It's really laying down the standardization of these standard work processes. The other focus I think we're driving and working in the industry is there's a strong appetite for improving reliability. So you can have a best practice optimized work process and organizational model, and that'll help you run very efficiently, right? But the other side of that is reliability. How do I increase my throughput with what I have, right? How do I move product through right first time? So we're doing a lot of work today, and a big feedback from the study is around reliability. A lot of companies see a need to implement really a more robust reliability strategy, right? One of the executives coins the phrase, which I kind of like. Reliability is the new safety. Safety is always important in these operations, right? But being reliable is key. And so a lot of work around reliability improvement. There are a number of strategies that go along with that. And I think,
let me break in there.
yeah.
Going back to the kind of delayering, is that something you're seeing that the majority of companies really have the opportunity to do, or is it kind of hit and miss as far as where that real savings lies for different organizations?
I'd say that in general in the industry, a lot of these companies have kind of built for growth, right?
Mhm.
And I'd say there's added headcount. They've also over the years they've had a lot of attrition. They've lost a lot of talent, giving aging workforce, right? So from a work process standpoint, the work processes I would say are they may have work processes, but they're not being followed, right? So I
Mhm.
think in general, what we're finding is that there's opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity in these companies, Jim. I would say to reduce costs through these best practice work processes.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
are there modern versions of doing that you bring to the table? I know, my history, you put together the standard operating procedures, and they're a physical paper binder sitting somewhere that collects dust that no one ever looks at. Are there ways now to make these things uh, more visible and more actively used by the floor workers?
Yeah, I'd say that, and that's the key, right? So that drives. I mean, a cultural change is a big piece of this, right? So getting the operators and the frontline folks involved. So the way we go about that is we create a war room, right, or a command center for this transformation activity, and basically on one wall we lay down the best practice for, let's just say, operate plant, right? And also and it's basically a long it's a long sheet of paper, right? And
Mhm.
it's the process map, right? And the role descriptions and the work instructions. On the other wall, the company comes in and lays down their practices for, let's say, operate, plant, organizational model, role descriptions, right? And then there's a dialogue around, okay, if this is what good looks like, and this is where you are today, what can you leverage from what you have, basically, and then we can build that into this sort of best practice for, let's just take operate, plant, or maintain plant as an example, right? And then we basically end up with that, let's say their one way of best practice of running their operation. It's not ours as a consultant. We want it to be theirs, right? And the beauty of that, in that room, we're getting operators, we're getting frontline supervisors, we're getting superintendents, we're getting plant managers, we're getting all those folks involved in basically creating these new work processes and new organizational models. So they feel part of it, right? So and that's the big cultural piece that it is really key to ensuring that these processes are sustainable.
Got it. Now shifting back to reliability, when I hear that word, I'm thinking process reliability, and certainly big companies have been focused on that for ages. But what I hear you talking about is more almost a combination of quality and flow. So let's dig into the specifics of what you mean when you say reliability and then how people tackle it.
Yeah, so the idea would be to run the line on a continual basis without any interruptions, right? So and when you're running these complex manufacturing processes, be it discrete or in process manufacturing, which is a chemical plant or let's say a big refinery, right? These are complex processes, right? So when you think about reliability, all the assets have to operate and they have to operate at the rates, right, to drive reliability improvement. So, I'd say that in many cases, companies are really starting to focus on, how do I build a robust reliability strategy, right? And that's, looking at their assets, looking at, and basically driving equipment. It's an equipment criticality review, right? What assets are critical? What preventive or treatments do I need to build into those assets to ensure that they run sustainable, right? I'd say the more forward-thinking companies are driving more, I would say, predictability in terms of
Mhm.
assets, and some of that's digital, right? So there's some great sensoring technology out there that can sense, let's say asset performance, motors, pumps, valves, things like that, right? They can sense when a failure is going to occur. They can then dispatch a maintenance team to go proactively address that issue rather than it fail and bring down a line, right? So driving this equipment criticality review and having good preventive strategies, as well as driving this more censored approach of their equipment, I think is the work we're doing with clients has really improved uptime and allowed
Mhm.
these companies to operate at maximum demonstrated rates, which is really key in our industry. Having a good bad actor program, understand where your bad actors are, right, and attack those bad actors and mitigate those bad actors is critical. But there are a number of approaches to reliability. But I'd say that today, again, much like laying down standard work, strong focus around how do I run a more predictable, reliable business, right, by having the right strategies.
Yep. One thing that occurs to me as you talk about the sensor end of things is, we hear all this scuttlebutt about Industry 4.0 and the industrial Internet of Things, and I think it's just a lot of noise to a lot of people. And yet, here's a great example of where, you know, predictive and preventive maintenance have been around forever, but as technology advances, it gets better and better as you apply it because it used to be you might replace good parts just because their time came up. That was the only way you had to gauge staying ahead of failure. Now, what you're saying is you have sensors that can tell you when a part's going to fail versus replacing it before that time. So you get more and more efficient in those practices.
Yeah, Jim, that's right. And what I'm really excited about is the more progressive companies have, quite frankly, a very a forward-thinking operating model. I think about like GE, for example, their jet engines, right? So they can monitor all their jet engines around the world in terms of
Yep.
engine performance, right? So a number of the companies we're working with, and we set up these strategies, have these command centers where they can monitor remotely their assets in their sites, in their plants with sensoring technology, right? So they can understand pretty quickly what's going to fail, and then they can work with a local site to dispatch the right maintenance organization, right, to proactively address those issues. So that more control room, advanced sensoring approach, what we kind of call a reliability command center, is really key to really driving world-class reliability. And I think that's where a number of companies want to go. But again, it's a maturity. Let's start with bad actor equipment criticality, some censoring locally, and then kind of get to this more broader global operations center.
Yep. Now, kind of the flip side of things is you talk about people just focusing on the cost cutting and maybe doing headcount reductions that they then have to reverse. Are there other watch outs around things that you kind of knee jerk to just to meet the numbers that can be detrimental to the operation?
Yeah, I think that's the crux of the survey, right? So the feedback from the survey is that there's cost cutting in headcount, there's cost cutting in procurement, there's cost cutting in discretionary, right? But these are more tops down targets, right? And I think the issue becomes sustainability, right? So if I'm going to take cost out, how can I sustain those cost savings, right? And I think in general, the only way you're going to do that, and I think, from talking to the executives and working with a number of executives in the industry, is it's really change the way you do business, change the work process, right? So that gets back to really where I see a lot of companies are going, and it's really laying down these standard work processes, right? Or I'd say, Jim, the interesting thing I also find many companies we're working with today, some leaders had great work processes, but through attrition, through aging workforce, they lost all the talent that
Mhm.
understood these work processes, right? So it's building back that capability to basically run your operations on a more predictable, robust basis, right? And that's either updating the standard work processes or laying down new standard work. But that's really the key for reducing cost if you're and on a sustainable way. If you're implementing these world-class work processes, right? Then you're changing the way business is done, and then you're running with an optimized headcount, and that's
Yep.
sustainable, and that's going to position the business for growth, as opposed to just tops down, let's say superficial cost cutting targets.
Are there any other kind of cautionary notes that people should be thinking about as they head down this
Yeah,
road?
I mean, I think the other area would be around their management operating system, or their performance management operating system.
Mhm.
I'm amazed that as we work with companies, and I think we see this a lot, there isn't a good performance management operating system for operations and supply chain. And what I mean by that is a good set of KPIs, a good management cadence, and those KPIs or metrics being visual, right? In many
Mhm.
cases, they're disconnected. So the key to, again, driving, I'll say, agility, short interval control, responsiveness, is this robust performance management system that goes all the way down to the shop floor, and getting the operators involved in really with a lens around how do I improve my my asset, my line, my operation, and then those KPIs, flow down and flow up, right? And it's more real-time reporting as opposed to these disconnected KPIs. So, and then the other part of that is visualization, right? So if you can get those metrics on the shop floor and have them visual and get people involved, that's gonna really get the operators and coming to work and thinking about how do I improve, right? Which
Mhm.
which again begins to change the culture. So um, I'd say that getting a robust performance management system is key to driving a really improved sustainable business, right? We're doing a lot of that work today.
Yeah, and the visual KPIs, there's another opportunity for technology, obviously, is, having screens on the plant floor that are constantly updated versus the old paper methodology from years past, right?
Oh yeah, we work with a number of software vendors and to basically implement metrics that are basically real time, right? Through
Yep.
through monitors on the shop floor, uh, where employees can actually see asset performance, right, and affect the line performance, and that real time aspect that is really key to improving performance. But so I think in a nutshell. If you really want to drive a let's say a sustainable improvement and a sustainable cost reduction. And when I say cost reduction, I'm talking 10 to 15% by implementing these best practices, right?
Yep.
It's all around a different way of running your operations through best practices, these standard work best practices, and new organizational models. It's really a keen focus around reliability. And again, it's a robust performance management system to make sure you're operating at the new rates and getting employees involved with on the shop floor with the new KPIs, right? To really to drive this really improvement strategy. But getting operators
Yeah.
involved, I think, is really key.
Yeah, and the key to culture change like you referred to earlier.
Yeah.
Well, we're about out of time. Is there anything else we didn't touch on that you need to share before we wrap up?
No, I think that's it. I think, the other key thought there would be around digital, right? So we're doing a lot of work today to help companies drive more predictability in their business. Um, again, the advanced companies, and I think that's some feedback on the survey, have a keen interest in this, and it's really around, yeah, as we talked about, reliability, sensoring, more predictability in terms of their assets, process optimization, advanced and collaborative robotics, right, where robots are working together on a collaborative basis to uh, to really drive repeatability and optimization in manufacturing. So, we really didn't get into the whole digital strategy. We're real big believers in get the business process right first, and then
Mhm.
look at how you and make sure there's a good business case, and then drive a digital strategy. But there's a lot of work going on in that space, I think, and there's a lot of interest in that space as companies move forward.
Got it. Well, okay. Thanks so much for being here today, Chuck. This was definitely informative.
Hey, great to be here, Jim. You're welcome, and look forward to talking more in the future.
How do people find you if they want to learn more?
Well, let's see. So, two ways. My email address would be chuck.deise, Deise, at efeso.com. Or my phone number is 443-803-5515. Feel free to reach out. Efeso is doing some great work in the industry, and we'd love to have a deeper conversation with you.
Good deal. Thanks again.
Thank you all. Take care. Thanks, Jim. Bye.
Yep. Okay. So some really great advice from Chuck, things you can go after for yourself. But if you do need help, Chuck did clarify after the fact. He gave his email address wrong. It is charles.deise@efeso.com. I won't spell it for you. It's in the show description. So take a look at that if you want to reach out to him. I'll also have the website for EFESO. And yeah, whether you're doing it for yourself or getting a hold of those guys to help you out, good luck with your cost savings and good luck with the new year. Man, if you like this show, next week's is going to be great because we're on the factory floor next week. I'm talking to Jay Dekmar. He is the owner of Lock Grips, and they make pistol grips. and we'll be at his machine shop recording with him on his machine shop floor. So tune in for that. It's going to be a great show. We'll see you next Tuesday. We'll see you every Tuesday. We'll be right here. I'm Jim Vinosky with Manufacturing Talks. So long.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Watch for new episodes dropping every Tuesday. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.